Hey guys, Mouse, I'm back with another video finally. So behind me you see the type of landscape we're dealing with today. This is going to be a 3-day adventure, so we're going to go out for 3 days. I'm taking no food or water, and I'm going to show you guys how to make shelter, how to get your food, how to get water in a winter time environment, and show you what edibles are out there. So let's get started. So while I'm walking, I'm looking for tracks or any wild edibles that I can see, but a lot of them I can't see, so just making my way to a spot where we can set up camp for now. Okay, so here's where I'm at. Right down there, that's a pond. I don't know if you can see it in this camera, it's kind of a crap camera. That's going to be my water, hopefully part of my food source the next 3 days. So come up this hill, found a flat spot. So right here, this is going to be home sweet home. I'm going to make a spider shelter big enough for myself and my gear and everything. So I've measured this out to the length of my body. The key with a spider shelter is to not pick one too big, not to make one too big, because your body's going to be heating this area. So as you can see, everything's wet, snowy. One of the main things I'm concerned about is snow bringing down some of these trees on top of me. So I'm next to the bigger trees. Hopefully they won't fall as easy, and if they do, I won't know it. That was a joke. So anyway, so this right here is going to be home. I've got some tarp with me. I'm going to put the tarp over it. That's going to be one of my 10 items, and that'll be letting that dry out so I can clean that out and put leaves and stuff on that, and then hopefully use the tarp for something else after I get this built. So that's how I'm going to get warm and dry. I'm cold, and I don't know if you can tell my pack covered in snow and everything, so we're going to get warm and dry. I'm going to get started on this and I'll get back. Alright, so right now we've got the tarp on. Now normally I wouldn't use a tarp for a spider shelter, I would use it for a different type of shelter, but what I'm doing right now, because it's going to be wet and we got started a little bit toward the evening, I'm using a tarp while I'm putting the sticks on, and you can see some of the sticks there. And a spider shelter is going to be waterproof anyway, because what you do with a spider shelter is you choose that main ridge pole, and then you're just going to lay sticks on that in a skeleton shape around your body, the length of your body. And then what you're going to do is pile up 3 foot of leaves. And once you pile 3 foot of leaves on it, it's completely waterproof, windproof. It's one of the easiest, quickest survival shelters to set up. So if I did not have a tarp, I would be okay. We'll still be dry. I just don't want to have to deal with it right now. And if I have the tarp, we might as well use it. So that's what we're doing. We just kind of threw the tarp over. Now we're throwing the sticks on, and then we're going to pile leaves up on those sticks to make it waterproof, windproof, give it some insulation, and our body heat will heat up our shelters. So we might set up a few different shelters. Alright, so I'll get back to you as we progress. Alright. Let's see if I can make this not so shaky. Alright, so here's the finished product. So we've got the leaves on, the sticks on. Over here is going to be the entrance. There's the entrance. Well, if I can keep the camera from swinging. So this was the V-shaped part of the front. You can see it goes back there to where the snow's in the back. And we're going to keep piling on, but for now this is windproof and acts as insulation. That tarp that's under there makes it waterproof, so I don't necessarily need the 3 foot of leaves and pine needles and such, but it helps. You know, a lot of people don't realize how much work it is to actually put 3 foot of leaves on, and when it's snowy and wet like this, one thing you want to be sure to do is to not start sweating, or when you do calm down and sit down, you'll pretty much freeze. So layer, you know, right now I got a jacket, a hoodie, and thermals, you know, good socks and stuff, so be sure to layer, so if you get hot you can take one layer off, keep yourself from sweating. And so you kind of want to pace yourself when doing something like this. So now I'm going to gather firewood, and we'll get a fire started in the snow and wet, and I'll show how to do that. Alright. Okay, so we've got the shelter done, and it's absolutely freezing out here, so now we're going to get a fire. And we're going by the rules of 3, and the rules of 3 says you can live 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. So to get water, food, and heat, we're going to build a fire, because we need to boil the water, we'll need to cook the food, we'll need it for heat. So now we're going to do the fire. So when everything's wet like this, and it's snowing like this, what you're wanting to do is find dry wood. And the places that you would look for dry wood is, you know, if a tree, if there's a limb down or a tree down, as you can see on the top of it, there's snow, and on the bottom of it, this side will be dry. Okay, when it first, even when it's raining, it'll be the same way. Even though rain comes down to the side, it'll drip off, and there'll be a dry spot here. If it's completely soaked, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to split your wood, because the inside, you can see where I sawed with this sawed kukri. I sawed this in half. Now we're going to split, because the inside of this wood is going to be dry, and that's where I'm going to get the first part to start this fire. Woods like this, like pine, a lot of northerners are probably thinking, why don't they just use birch? We don't have a lot of it around here. The best thing we can use is pine. So I'm going to process this down by batoning it. I'm going to split this. Just take another stick here. I'm just going to take another stick, and I'm going to hit this and baton it and split it, and then I'm going to use the inner dry wood there to help start this fire. Also, I have some poplar that I'm going to use as my bird's nest, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and process this down, split it. See all of that on the inside there? That's dry wood. You can see how dry that is. Down here you can see it's kind of wet from where this is kind of punk wood. It's still soft. This is all dry. That's what I'm going to use. Alright, let me process this down. We'll get back with you. Red, but and then the red. Alright, so what I'm going to do now that I've processed this down and split this, now I'm going to take the dry part, and this is pine, and I'm going to do what's called a feather stick. And by the angle of my knife is the direction that I can decide I want these little curls to curl in. I'm going to do as many curls as I can, split this off, and start another one. And these are all dry, and so this is going to act as, you know, like a lot of the small sticks, because a lot of these small sticks like this are wet. You can see this one's wet. Some of them are dry. We managed to get some dry. The higher the drier. So don't get them off the ground, get them up from the trees. If one's dead standing, or when a limb falls off, if it gets caught on another limb, it doesn't have the same moisture problem. Now this, you want to get low on the tree to get the fat wood, which is just the turpentine that's in the wood. It all goes toward the bottom during the winter. So get toward the bottom, or where a branch has broken off right there at the end of the tree. That will usually have a lot of this fat wood in it. So what I'm going to do is make some of these feather sticks, and that's going to be with this and the tinder bundle, or bird's nest, I'm sorry, of trees falling. The bird's nest of, I'm getting soaked here. Let me cover my, I don't want all this to get wet, so, alright, so, anyway, I'm going to get the poplar and cedar that I've got. I'm going to process it down. I'll show you when I do that. That's going to be my bird's nest that I'm going to throw a spark to. I'm going to probably use a ferrocerium rod to do that instead of a primitive fire. And doing these feather sticks will be how we get it started. Once we get flame, we can get some of these that are more dry, that are just a little wet, get them started, and that's how we're going to get the fire going, and we'll film that process. So let me get some of these feather sticks made and we'll get back with you. Alright, so now I've got a few feather sticks made. I'm going to make some more, but I wanted to show this. So to process this stuff up, what I'm going to do is, this is the tulip poplar and cedar. So I'm just going to process it. What I want is as many of these little fibers showing as possible. That's what's going to catch the spark and start our coal to be able to blow it into a flame. So I'm going to separate these. So what you'll do is, when you first, and try to keep it off the ground. When you first pull them off, they come off in strands like this. Many people will recognize this. Makes good rope. You'd want to get it wet first before you start making rope with it. We'll do a video on that. But what you'll do is you'll take it and you'll just smash it up in your hands. And you're trying to get the bark, this bark pieces off of it. And you just want the inner fibers. And you'll just roll it around in your hands. You can see some of that coming off there. And you'll just smash it up and, you know, just roll it around. You see all that dust coming off? That's where it's dry. And this was off of the underside of it, or when you can pick it up when it's dry. If you're anticipating being in a situation like this, you just pick it up when it's dry. And then you just want to separate it and pull it apart and expose as many of those little fibers as you possibly can. And you can tell this is somewhat dry, but the dust coming off of it. And see that bark, those bark pieces that are on there, that's what you don't want on there. You're wanting to separate that. These little strands, that's what you're trying to get, trying to expose as many of those as possible. And you're just going to roll that around and just keep doing that, and that's how you process this. So I'm going to do this to these, and I'll get back with you after I make a few more feather sticks and get the spark on this and get the fire started. So I'm just going to take it. Oop. Dropped it. I'm just trying to work it as much as I can. Just pull it apart, separate it. Those little fibers is what I want right there. That's what I want. As many of those showing as possible, especially when it's wet. Like this, it'll be a lot easier to start the fire if you've got as many of those showing as you can. So, and you're just going to keep working it until you get a really nice soft ball. Like that. If you've got dust coming off of it, you're doing right. That right there is what I want. Oh, no. You're going to try to keep the snow off of it. That would help. I would typically do this in a shelter if I wanted to really have it dry. We're trying to hurry up and do this, so I'm just going to start working on another one. Alright, we'll get back with you when we start it. Alright, so before I make my fire, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make what's called a fire bed, because it's really wet and cold on the ground, so I don't want the ground sucking out that heat. So I'm going to lay some sticks down and use that instead of the cold ground. I'm going to put my bird's nest on that. This is about 4 of these, and I'm going to use these to help get this started, lay them on there, also with the feather sticks. Also, when you're making the feather sticks, any of these that fall off on the ground, you can still use these, keep them. Alright, so then I've got a few feather sticks. We're going to try to get this started with just the few we have. It's really cold. Alright, so preparation, we've got a bunch of the small sticks. I'm going to put them on slow instead of, just tossing them on there. When you start off, you're going to start off really small, like more snow falling on it. Just fell right on the bird's nest. Let's flip that over and hope that works. Alright, you're going to notice as cold, as wet as it is out here, when I start this, there's going to be a lot of smoke. And then you'll notice as I put these on here and get the fire going, the hotter the fire, the less smoke. So you'll see that as we go. Cover this from snow falling on us. Alright, so we're going to throw a spark to this, get a flame going to this, put the feather sticks on, start loading up small sticks on it, and some of the tulip bark. And then as the flames come over the top, we'll just keep adding and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we'll have a fire. Okay, the key to fire is preparation. You don't want to just start trying to light. A lot of people, they'll try to just start light stuff that's too big or too wet without processing it properly. They might get flame and then it'll keep going out and they'll keep having to blow on it and all that. So, all right, hopefully I can show you this pretty quick. So here we go. Without knocking it off. Alright, let's keep that burning. Alright, here we go. Set this off to the side. Is it going to keep going? Come on. Nope, might have to do it again. Get a few stripes going. Did I get it? Come on. My hands are so cold. Come on. Keep going. Keep the snow from falling on it. Put that off to the side. Our feather sticks over here. Making that fire bed also ensures that this gets enough oxygen once it does start get going. The snow keeps hitting it. Come on. Alright, then I'm going to take this small little pieces of tulip bark, if I can stop knocking my bird's nest around. Just keep building up onto it. Start off really small and just work my way up. Snow has fallen on all this stuff I had prepared over here to get this started. Come on, just keep going. You don't want to keep adding too much to it until you see flame coming over the top of it, and then you can add to it. It's barely going. Just struggling. Oh, this is so wet. There we go. Come on. All right. Flame's coming over the top. I can start adding some more. Starting off with really, really small sticks here. Really, really small. And then we'll get bigger. Even these, some of these are a little bit big for this. This right here is what we want, this size. And you want it to be dry enough to snap. Whenever you break it, it should make that snapping noise. Like that. That one's way too big. Just keep burning. And I'm using pine, because like I say, when it's really wet like this, you need that little softwood, that turpentine that's in pine really helps. Even when it's wet out, it'll usually catch pretty decently. Alright, we got a little bit of a good flame going here. I can add a little bit bigger. Not real big, just, you know, pencil lead size. Something about like that size right there is good. Still pretty small. Work our way up from that. Alright, starting to go a little bit better. I'm going to add maybe pencil size. Maybe a little bit smaller than pencil size. Again, I'm wanting to wait for it to come across the top of it before I keep adding a whole bunch on. See how it's coming across the top now? Add just a little bit more. You don't want to suffocate it at this point. You want it to have oxygen. I'm going to wait to put that one on. Alright, there we go. You don't want to get in a hurry and just start tossing a bunch of stuff on here. That's a good way to put your fire out. You'll get a good one going and then end up putting it out because you suffocated it or you put too big of wood on. At this point it's going good. We've got a little bit of some coals going. I'm going to keep adding the pencil lead size, everything we've got here, and start working our way up to bigger and bigger sizes. I like starting off with a TP because what that does is as it's burning underneath, it's reflecting that heat back down into the coals that it's making, and it creates its own updraft and starts getting more and more oxygen to it, and it'll get stronger and stronger as it goes. As you see, this is getting a little bit bigger.
1 minute.
Alright, as you can see, this isn't going to go out now, so I'm just going to keep adding bigger and bigger. And then I'm going to end up getting fuel wood, and we'll get back with you and show you the process of, you know, getting the fuel wood and such. Alright, so as you can see, you just keep adding fuel wood, bigger and bigger wood, and it's not going out obviously. And next I put a line up so we could dry out our socks and clothes and stuff. We're going to dry out the clothes that we got wet. I've already dried out my cap that I had on, our boots, and get our feet warm and stuff. And next I'll be looking at that pond down there for a little bit of water and food. So we're going to start looking at procuring some food and water before we get hungry and expend calories, not after. Alright, so we'll get back to you. Okay guys, so I've got this canteen here, this metal canteen. This would be another one of the items, one of the 10 items that I would carry if I was like on that show alone or whatever. That's kind of what I'm doing right now, is kind of showing what I would do if I was on the show alone, what I would carry and how I do it. So later on we're going to have a talk about what gear I would carry and why. But a metal canteen, single wall stainless steel canteen kit. This comes as a kit. So this is a cup and this is the canteen, and then the cup's got a little lid to it. I would definitely carry something like that. If I had to pick between any of them, it would be that canteen there. So I went down, got some water, gonna bull up some water. That does two things. It's gonna clean the water after it's bulled, but it's also gonna help my body stay warm, not having to fight to, you know, heat up cold water. So also at night I boil a thing of water so that I have water throughout the night, but I'll also put the top on it after it's warm, you know, after it's boiled. I'll put the top on it and I'll put it in my sleeping bag, and that will help warm the sleeping bag up so that I'm not burning calories from my body having to heat up the space of the sleeping bag. I'd rather that energy from the fire to do that rather than me burning calories doing that. So alright, we'll be back. Alright guys, I'm down here next to this pond, the water's edge here, and it's got a little bit of a run off. It goes back over here. That's up that way is where the camp is. So what I want to show you guys real quick is this is my pocket fishing kit, and all it is a medicine bottle. These are 2 bands of electrical tape that keeps the fishing line from completely falling off, and I drilled a hole, got a lanyard inside. It's got hooks and lures and sinkers and things like that. And all you do, you see I store the hook right there so I don't stick myself. But all you do is you have this on your hand, the lanyard around your arm, and you cast it with your finger on the hook. You cast it out there underhanded, toss it out as far as you want to go, and then you just wind it back up around the medicine bottle there, and that's how you reel it back in. So this is going to be my food source, hopefully. So we'll give it a shot. If not, then I know where some dandelion is, some clover, and I'll probably make some pine needle tea for dinner. Alright, I'll get back to you. Okay, so we didn't get to do much filming last night. Here's the other shelter. I'm going to show you guys that in a little bit. We're going to work on that today. What I want to show you real quick before this card runs out is something called a twitch snare. You pull a springy branch down. Here's the line coming down. This line comes down to a toggle right here, and this is the bait stick. This is just a stick stuck in the ground, and you lay your noose over that, and what happens is when something comes along and eats your bait, you put your bait right here on this stick, and when it presses down on it, that's what happens. It gets snared, and it'll be hanging in the tree for you, or hanging above the ground, or strangled whenever you get back. Alright, so I'm going to go work on this shelter, and I'll show you guys this shelter in just a minute, if I can get my hand out of this snare one-handed.